They say that it is from an action that springs as opposed to living of an action. Likewise, when we speak about the philosophy of taba', there is some similarity between taba' and illah. Both are saying that it is only about to bring something into existence. Yani something that springs into existence. They do not speak about to leave a particular, to be burnt. So the author gave the example of wetness on paper. Yani at times when there is wetness on paper, when you take the paper and you put near the fire, it touches the fire, the paper will not burn. What is the reason the paper will not burn? Because there is a mani'. This is what they are saying. That paper is an impediment. That it is a preventive factor that prevents fire from burning a paper. So they speak about these two conditions. They say that example of this in the visible world meaning the world that we see, the universe, is combustion and fire. Combustion, they said, is an innate nature of fire. However, it is preconditioned with obtaining something, which is in this case will be contact. Contact is iltimas. That's what I mentioned earlier. There must number one be contact. And the removal of a preventive barrier. Now, removal of a preventive barrier. This is called al-mani', or it's called impediment, which is in this case will be wetness. Yani wetness is a condition that will make fire not burn. In the argument, they say that if a precondition that continues to remain is obtained, the world is brought into being without will. So they are, because earlier as what we mentioned, there must be two conditions, correct or not? There must be a precondition and it must be free from preventive barrier. So when they speak about the universe, how does this universe come into existence? As far as the people of Allah are concerned, they do not speak about precondition and mani' and preventive barrier. Because they are saying that by the existence of God springs the existence of the universe. The universe. This is by cause and effect. But the people of Taba say that is not the case. In order for the universe to come into existence, it must be preceded by a precondition. Meaning when the precondition exists and the preventive factor is eternal. So it doesn't mean they believe that the world is eternal. They say, for example, the world is contingent. The world is contingent. Meaning last time the world does not exist. How come the world exists? Because of a precondition that comes. So whenever there is a precondition that comes and there is no preventive barrier, then it sprung into existence. But this existence of the universe is not from the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not any from the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Ahlul Sunnah responded to them by saying, if you say that the preventive barrier is eternal, if you say that the preventive barrier is eternal, now the author speaks about the preventive barrier. So number one, we spoke about there must be a precondition. This is what they are saying. There must be a precondition. So how does the universe come into existence? Because of the existence of a precondition that becomes the reason or the effect of the existence of the universe against the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Now they are saying, how about the preventive factor, the preventive barrier? So if you say that the preventive barrier is eternal, now we have to understand this kind of discussion or argument here. See, these philosophers are saying that in order for the universe to come into existence, there must be a precondition. Not only there must be a precondition, but there must be free from preventive barrier. So now they are saying that the universe is in existence, and before there is a preventive, there is a precondition that exists, that becomes the effect of the existence of then it implies basically eternal here, meaning yani it is qadim, yani it doesn't have a beginning. Then that implies that it could never be non-existent, because it is impossible for the pre-eternal to be non-existent. Yani if we say that this any preventive any barrier is something any that always any in existence, is something any that in always any be in existence, meaning the universe cannot come into existence because it is always in existence. The preventive any barrier is constantly in existence, even though you have any the condition, the precondition, but the universe any cannot come into existence as long as any the mani' or the preventive barrier is always any in existence. If you say that the preventive barrier is eternal, then that implies that it could never be non-existent. What is the thing any that is non-existence? The barrier, the preventive any barrier, because it is impossible for the pre-eternal to be non-existent. Something any that is qadim, it cannot go any to non-existence. Something any that has no beginning, it cannot come into non-existence. Anything yusafu bil qidam yastahilu alayhi adam. Anything any that has the characteristics any of al qidam, it cannot become non-existent. So basically what the author is saying, that if they are saying that this preventive any factor is eternal, meaning always and in existence, then what you call it, the universe cannot spring into existence, because something that doesn't have a beginning, it must always be in existence. And if the preventive any barrier is in existence, meaning the universe cannot spring into existence because it is prevented from doing so. It is prevented from occurring. I hope it is clear, inshallah. Then that implies that it could never be non-existent because it is impossible for the pre-eternal to be non-existent. Thus, the world could not exist. Now, this is the conclusion. Thus, the world could not exist. I hope it is clear, inshallah. Maybe I do it one more time. Now, the people of Taba, they are saying for something to come into existence, it must be preceded by the precondition, and the preventive barrier must not be present. Correct or not? The moment you say preventive barrier is present, meaning it cannot spring into existence. So these two conditions must be present. There must have precondition free from preventive barrier. Tamam. So if you question them and you ask them now, how does the universe come into existence? So they will say, initially there was a precondition that exists. So the universe comes into existence. At the same time, there is no preventive barrier. That's why the universe can come into existence. There is no preventive any barrier. The Ahlul Sunnah say that if you make any such a claim, now, is this preventive any barrier eternal or not eternal? If they say it is eternal, meaning it is always in existence, and if that is the case, then this universe cannot be in existence. Because if the preventive barrier is always in existence, by their condition, now the universe cannot be in existence, but the universe is in existence, and this is contradicting. So this is ultimately a false argument. If you say that the preventive barrier is contingent, this is another possibility that can come from them. So now if they say that this preventive barrier is contingent, and contingent meaning it is preceded by non-existence, and initially there was no preventive any barrier, but then the preventive barrier comes. The preventive barrier comes. If you say that the preventive barrier is contingent, it will need a preventive barrier before it. It will need a preventive any barrier before it. Now, why? Because if there is no preventive barrier, the universe will be in existence. So this will lead to us saying there will be another preventive barrier, because this preventive barrier itself is contingent. This preventive barrier is contingent. It is not any pre-eternal. So it must be preceded by other preventive barriers. It must be preceded by other preventive barriers, and this it can lead to tasalsul. It can lead to infinite regression. It will need a preventive barrier before it. If this preventive barrier is contingent. Yeah. So every time a preventive barrier is present, the universe cannot be in existence. The universe cannot be in existence. So when we say it is contingent, meaning what you call it comes, then we have to ask the question, what about before? What about before the preventive barrier which is contingent? Then we got no choice but to say that it is preceded by another preventive barrier. Then what happens to before it? Then we come into a state where we say there is a preventive barrier, and this will be never ending. This will entail infinite regress, which is impossible. Infinite regress as what we mentioned, at-tasalsul is muhal. Tasalsul is impossible. According to their own view, a precondition can only be contingent, thus it would need a precondition before it, and another before it, and so on, which will entail infinite regress and a negation of the world. Likewise, the precondition also they say it is contingent. Now, when it is contingent, then it will need a precondition before it. It will need a precondition before it, and because the world is in existence. Thus, it will need a precondition before it and another before it, and so on, which will entail infinite regress and a negation of the world. Now, because infinite regress itself is impossible, and to have a precondition which result in infinite regression is impossible. So it is impossible to say that the world exists by this type of precondition that is contingent. Any will, or without his power and his choice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as though something happens in his creation without his will, without his power. And this is not only impossible, but this will lead a person to kufr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to disbelief, because of the fact they believe that other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give effect against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, and against the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why there is a consensus amongst the ulama of Aqeedah, that those who believe in this type of causation, in Allah or in Taba', as what Al-Imam Ahmad Dardir mentioned in Aqeedah Bahiyah, وَمَنْ يَقُلْ بِالْطَبْعِ أو بِالْعِلَّةِ فَذَاكَ كُفْرٌ عِنْدَ أَهْلِ الْمِلَّةِ. Those who believes in nature, innate nature and causation, this leads to a person to disbelief into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I hope it is clear, inshallah. I hope that part where he speaks about infinite regress is clear, inshallah. So maybe I do this one more time. I think some people might have some question on this. You see, the people of Taba, people of nature, they say that the universe come into existence by two conditions. Number one, there must be a precondition. Number two, it must be free from mani'. So if these two conditions are present, then only the world can come into existence. The author speaks about the mani'. There are two possibilities. If they claim that the preventive barrier is eternal, meaning always in existence, then this contradicts what is witnessed. Now when we are seeing the